Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. Thank you for spending a part of your day with us today. I'm super excited to be joining an important conversation today with my two colleagues and friends, Luc Paquette and Stephen Karam. How are you guys?
Good, good. And you, Val?
Yes, I am good. I'm excited. I love doing these webinars. How are you, Stephen?
Doing great, Val. Thanks a lot. This is going to be a great show.
Yes, we're gonna have a lot of fun. I already see people joining. We will let them some time to join. Um, but perhaps before, as we wait for people to join, we could perhaps do a quick intro, explain who we are. We are sharing the screen with our faces right here, so I can start, right? Perhaps ladies first.
Of
So my
course.
name is, yeah, thank you, Luc. So my name is Valerie Delaurier. I'm the AI go-to-market lead here at Levio. I have delivered multiple different data and AI projects, and by doing so, I have developed that expertise around adoption, most specifically. I have developed that passion as well to really implement a human-centered AI, and so we will be discussing a lot of that today as well. Stephen, your turn.
Thanks, Val. Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Stephen Karam. I'm the partner for the Canadian public sector. Some of you remember me as being the CEO and president of System Scope. We joined Levio earlier this year. Been working with the government of Canada for over 30 years in over 50 different departments. Been advising in AI for quite a while and been part of some really interesting experiments and learned a lot along the way. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you.
Luc.
Hi, everyone. Luc Paquette. As you can see, my title is kind of weird. I'm technology evangelist, which means is if something's new regarding technology, it should end up to be at my screen. I like to do the new stuff. I like to play with it and try to figure out how that new stuff could be applied to our customer at Levio. So right now, of course, I'm doing AI 24 hours a day. So I hope that you will have fun to hear from us what we do with our customer regarding AI.
This is your toy store, Luke. This is great.
And today, for people joining us, I think we're already a nice crowd.
Yeah.
That's very exciting. So today we will be having a discussion. It's really we will have key topics, but we won't go slide by slide. It's not your typical webinar. It's really a conversation we will be having around these key topics that you see here. And as we go through these topics and as we discuss for the next 30 minutes, if you do have questions for us, please take the time. You could do so right now. Please take the time to go in the Q&A section. You could put your answer there. And at the end, after the 30 minutes, we will keep a 15-minute session where we will answer those questions. So if you already have a question in mind, please go ahead, click on the Q&A section and write your questions there. And we will really answer the questions first come, first serve. If we don't have enough time to answer your particular question, we will take the time after the webinar to give you an answer by email. And perhaps we can even schedule a session to discuss your question in more details. So today, what we will be discussing is Stephen always says that citizens act as the connector. So what exactly do we mean by that? And what is the reality right now in public sector? Please go back to the previous slides because I want to explain all the different topics of today. Yes, thank you. And so Stephen will start by explaining this. He will kick it off, and then we will really explain how data is the key foundational element to an AI that will empower your organizations. So data is a key fundamental element, but adoption, human adoption is as well. And this is where I will jump in and give my 2 cents on that, give a little bit of strategies around how to ensure that we can have a good adoption whenever we implement AI. I know Stephen will have a demo to give you to show you examples, real life examples of how AI can be implemented. And Luc as well will have a real life example of how AI was able to empower its users. So this is the goal of today, going through all these topics. We have 30 minutes, stop chrono. So Stephen, I will let you kick it off with the first topic here regarding the citizen as a connector. What do you mean exactly by that?
This is a good starting point, Val, because anybody who's trying to do any type of interaction with the government of Canada, you go to Canada.ca. It's great because it kind of acts as the information center. But as soon as you try and start getting some services, you have to start connecting the dots on everything, because ultimately departments are actually prevented from sharing your information with other departments, even though it's one big government of Canada. So, you may be able to work with CRA to do your taxes, and you give a lot of information to CRA to do your taxes, but they don't share that with other departments. So as soon as you're trying to get a service with another department, you're ultimately left to your own devices to start over again. Now, the government has been trying to connect the dots by establishing the notion of tell us once. So tell us once. We know your name, we know where you live, we know your history with us. We can actually do things that help you, but that's not the case. In fact, most times you actually have to start over and give your name, your address, give all the new information as if they've never met you and they don't know who you are. So that way, citizens still have to act as the connectors, and it kind of stops at the departmental level or even at the program level, because inside the same department, they don't share information between programs. So you're always trying to connect the dots. And that's why citizens are left to their own devices to act as connectors. It's frustrating. It takes time. In fact, they may be losing out on programs and services that they are actually eligible for, because we're not doing a good enough job within government to actually make those connections. And it's not because we're not trying. It's because there are barriers in place. But I think there's an opportunity for us to do this now.
What are the barriers? Like, because what you're saying is exactly what I live as a citizen every time I need to go jump from, let's say, one department to another. Like, what are the barriers exactly? Why is it like this?
Primarily, there's policy and legislative barriers, and
Yeah.
they're buried well within the acts of each of the departments. And so what ends up happening is we interpret these acts, we interpret these policies as, well, we cannot actually do anything with this information because we're collecting it because of this program or because of this policy, but we're not allowed to share it, even though it's useful information. So we tend to be told, no, you can't share that information. It's protected, and yet it's protected at the same level as other policies. So we're not actually creating those linkages and creating those connections. And we're not actually pushing back on the legislation, because the legislation, the policies can change if there's an imperative to do so. And we've done that in the past in other programs, but we're not doing it now at a scalable level. So I think we're in a position where we can actually start to challenge that a little bit more, because we are falling further and further behind other countries. We have slipped down into the 40s in terms of index and of e-government and digital government. It's time we start reversing that slide and start moving back up by being able to connect those dots.
Are we able to connect those dots?
Well, I think we can, actually, because there have been instances where we're trying to bundle services at the physical layer. So, for example, people are saying, well, we need to create all of these data hubs. We need to create, we have to consolidate data so that we can use it better, and we have to bundle services. That's not necessarily the case. In fact, we can create a fabric that connects all of the dots that are out there already. One example that where we've connected dots is where the business registries all across Canada are separate entities at the provincial and territorial level, which is actually impeding internal trade, which is a priority of this government. And what Levio has done in the past, started in 2016, was connecting those registries, not by creating one big registry, but by actually creating the information architecture necessary to allow the registries to connect to each other. That is a beginning point of creating AI readiness to be able to connect those dots, because you're maintaining a structure that allows for different sources of data, different services to talk to each other by having that kind of an interpretive language in between, by mapping these things. So there are easy ways to do this that actually predate AI. And I think, we just need to be able to talk a little bit more about that and how that can work.
Yeah, and look, I think you do have experience with connecting the dots, just like Stephen is explaining, right?
Yeah. If you try to see the whole picture, it will be a long project to be able to have those silos put down and be able to put in place the whole stuff to be able to, from the department A, to be able to talk to the department B. Like Stephen says, there's regulation there. But if you focus on what each department has as data, they could leverage those data tomorrow, okay, today, man. So for each department, they just ask to figure out which data they knows about the citizen and which data could be leveraged by the citizen itself. So that's a good way to start. Too often, and Stephen, you talk a lot with those guys at the department, the IT guys. They always said, "We're not ready. We're not ready to do AI." Yes, they are. We have proof of that. And the reason why they are, it's because they have at least data regarding their department. So the citizen is able to leverage with AI what that department knows about it.
It's true, because what you said is actually true, Stephen, that the citizen is the connector because of legislations and tons of limitations, and sometimes we cannot really do something about it. We do not have the full picture, and yes, we need to repeat, but within departments, we have data, and
Yep.
we don't want to be stopped. And I see a lot of organizations stopping themselves for, oh, we cannot do AI. We don't have a centralized data hub. We don't have this data lake that has it all. But you don't need to do that. That would be like there's a saying, boiling the ocean, right?
Yep.
You don't need to boil the ocean to get started with AI. You could start with just smaller use cases, just with the data you have. And
Oh, absolutely.
it could be linked to internal processes as well. You do have your data for internal processes and just improving them. Something that internal users will go through, and it could take, for example, 4 business days by leveraging AI and specifically agentic AI, identifying the bottlenecks and streamlining this process and improving it. Perhaps you can go from 4 business days to 2 hours, and therefore the citizen experience will be improved just by doing that. And you could leverage only the data you have access to for that, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think there's, we get into a point where there's this kind of inflection point with AI, because we think that AI is going to help us like leapfrog. And I always laugh when we talk about that word leapfrog, because government has been using it for decades, right? It's saying, oh, well, we aren't far enough along in this particular technology, but a new technology's come along. Let's leapfrog and actually catch up. And the issue is it makes us neglect all of the obligations we've had around what we were supposed to be doing in the first place, which was making sure we're maturing ourselves in the space of data, in the space of process, in the space of roles and responsibilities, in our operating model overall. We still have to do that with AI, and being able to, in those data silos and those other silos that exist, there's a wealth of information out there that we can leverage, just as you're saying, Val, and just as Luc brought up. But what we're not doing is we're not leveraging it effectively, and we're holding up barriers and saying, "Oh, sorry, we can't do that. It's the policy. Sorry, we can't do that. Legislation actually stops us from doing it." But I've been in rooms with senior executives and legal executives where they actually say, "Well, wait a second, we can actually do that." What's happening is we're actually interpreting the policy wrong, to our disadvantage, because we're saying, well, we can't do it because the policy says X. It's like, well, hang on. In this particular instance, we can, and we can interpret it in the right way, and we can maintain the level of responsibility and ethics that we require to be policy compliant. So these are kind of some of where the rubber hits the road, and where we have to be surgical about what we do, as opposed to saying, well, we can just put AI throughout the entire department and we can actually make it better. No, that's not the case. You brought it up, Val, about explorations, experiments. These are really, really important, because it allows you get to answer the really key questions as you're going along your journey and before you scale, because you don't want to scale before you're ready, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's a big consideration for government at this point in time, which is everybody's. If you were to ask how many AI projects there are in government, there are thousands. Like, it's not that the government's not doing AI, right? Mm-hmm. You walk in any department and everybody's proud about what they're doing, and they should be, because this is exactly what we should be doing. but everybody that I'm talking to is having a hard time to the point where they have to scale. Right. And when I say scale, I mean
Yep.
bring it to the department wide, have all of the proper instruments in place. Everybody knows their roles and responsibilities. Everybody understands their authorities. The policies are written. It's not there yet, and that's fine. That's part of the journey. But this is that point where we need to be very, very clear about what the next steps of the journey are.
Mm-hmm. And you're opening a door here because, as I said earlier when we just started, so data is fundamental. It's fundamental, right? You absolutely need your data. You need to have access to it. But the adoption is also fundamental regarding the humans who will be using it, right? Because if you do your proof of concept and you put in place data there and you have everything you need to do this proof of concept for AI, but nobody uses it, and perhaps those thousands of projects that you're referring to, Stephen, perhaps most of them are just staying in the lab and nobody is using them because you really need, and how do you ensure adoption then? Right. And I've lived that throughout a couple of different projects. And what we like to do at Levio is we don't do proof of concepts, we do proof of values.
Yeah.
Right. And how you identify that value is by involving your key champions. It's by not having this top-down approach, which is the classic approach for change management, for example. Whenever you implement, let's say, a software or CRM, it's at the higher level management that they will take the decision, and then from top down, they will have a communication plan and trainings and making sure that adoption is. But when you do a bottom-up approach, this is where it works with AI adoption because you involve the key end users in the decisions, in the brainstorming sessions, in the workshops to identify the key use cases that will bring value, that will remove pain points, that will answer the challenges we have, that would answer the objectives that the department has as well. And by doing so, by being involved right out the bat, they will tend to adopt it way more, because it comes from them, it comes from their feedback, it comes from their insights. And when you do that, and you have a key team that is ready to get started with it, and to identify that team, we have developed this full methodology of human-centered adoption for AI, and it has multiple different phases. And phase 2, right after discovery and doing the workshops, is having we have a maturity matrix when it comes to AI to really assess the maturity level of, yes, your organization, but also your different teams, your different departments, your different sub-teams. You can even go granular in individuals. But once you have that assessment of the maturity level of AI, then you can select, okay, this team is more mature and is more ready than this other team. So if we were to do a first proof of value, let's start with the team that is more ready, because then they will help us do that foundation and scale it up and explain to the other teams how it works, how it's great, how it improved their day-to-day, and how it's improving the citizen experience as well, right? So this is definitely something that is key, and that I encourage all the public sector organizations to do. Really assess your different teams at the maturity level and involve them. Choose your key champions and involve them in the workshops to identify the use cases for proof of values. Yep.
And Val, a lot of those employees are afraid of AI because they are afraid that they will lose their job. Okay. At Levio, we choose proof of value for something. Okay. It's not the proof of concept, it's value. But we have another phrase too, which is we give superpower to those employees. So we don't replace them. We give them superpowers by bringing AI to their day-to-day job. Okay. That we saw this a lot. First, they are afraid, but after that, where they are behind the wheel and they are using it, it's perfect. They understand why AI it's important for their job and for the citizen at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. And there are key activities and workshops you can do with them as well to show them that they should not be afraid. Hackathons, for example, I like to call them promptathons, right? So you really have them think about how they could leverage AI. This is how AI works. This is how you can leverage it. Now that you know that, how would you, if you had a magic wand, how would you use AI to help you in your day to day? And usually amazing ideas come from out of those sessions. So I highly recommend that as well. But this is a good point, Luke. Most people are afraid to be replaced, and the main message needs to be AI is not here to replace you, it's here to empower you.
Yep.
Yeah, and
Really,
I
really
think
important.
it's important to note that the change management has to begin right at the beginning, right? A lot of times people say, well, okay, we do change management after the change is made. And because that's where that's where adoption starts, right? And no, it's actually, we know that adoption starts right from the beginning. As soon as there is a perceived opportunity or even threat, right? For some, AI is an opportunity. For others, AI is a threat, but it's the same thing, right? The fact of the matter is that it's change. And so by applying the proper change management, as we've been talking about, we can actually bring people along the journey and make them the heroes of that journey, right? Because at the end of the day, as Levio, we're not looking to be the heroes, right? We're actually looking more to create the heroes. And I love watching that when I'm with my clients and being able to say, well, okay, now I've got to be in front of a deputy minister to actually present this demo, right, of the proof of value. And I've done that before, but I don't want to be the one presenting it. I want actually our clients to be presenting it, because I love watching how excited they get when they're doing this. And these are the same people who, to Luke's point, were kind of hesitant to come to the table because they were wondering, geez, like you're going to expose that AI could possibly do this faster than a human, and I'm in charge of this process, but now you're showing that this process could be obsolete for humans. And the answer is yes, the process is, but the role is not, right? And that's the supercharging. And we use terms like value shift, right? The ability to say, well, where's the value of you as the employee? The value is not in doing the mundane. The value is in doing the things that the department couldn't do otherwise, and that ultimately they've been looking to do, but they haven't had the capacity, they haven't had the resources, and everything comes out. Well, now they do, because you've actually removed the process or the effort and the energy required to do some of the more mundane, repeatable tasks, and allows people to move into different levels of value. And I think that's really exciting, right? Because then now you could do, like we always talk about, oh, well, you know what, the government wants us to do more with less, right? And at the end of the day, it's very true. It doesn't matter just government, and we're talking about every industry, because either it's hyper competitiveness, it's downward pressure in the economy, right? You can pick your poison, but there's a constant need to increase your velocity while either staying steady state operationally or doing it with less. We now are on the doorstep where that's very possible, but we have to do this properly, right? It's the crawl, walk, run. So we have to be able to do this effectively, even though AI is the capability of AI is not advancing exponentially, it's advancing logarithmically, which is faster than we are able to keep up with, which is why it's intimidating for some people to try and keep up with where AI is any given week. And some people just say, okay, well, like they're either coming along for the ride or they're driving. I think we work with the people who want to be able to drive some of that change, and that's exciting.
Yeah. So far, key takeaways is really you don't have to have all your centralized data to get started with AI. Look at the data you do have access to, and then look at what the pain points could be fixed with AI, with the teams that could work with you, that could get started for your proof of value, and mix these two and get started with AI right away, right? And I want to perhaps show real life examples, because there's nothing like it, right? To really kind of demonstrate what we're saying here. So I know, Luke, you have a great example.
Yeah, that's a perfect one for the discussion that we have. Here, a process that a social worker needs to be done, okay? It's a long process. When we met that social worker, the process is half a day long, okay? she needs to have meeting with her client, have a long meeting. Usually it's 1 hour meeting, but after that meeting, she needs to do a ton of paperwork. To that paper will go to the government. So what we propose, and we don't want to disturb the way that she works, we just leverage first her iPhone. She record all the meeting, okay? And at the end of the meeting, she, without any super power system, she just sent an email to an address with the audio of the meeting, and we process that audio. We do the transcription, and then we do a resume. And most important part, we keep her expertise, the human in the loop, that's what we call it. So when she received the email, she's with her expertise, she just look at the AI stuff that she received and just maybe change it, or maybe change a lot, or maybe just a little bit. And at the end, she sent what she figured out, which is perfect. She sent it to another email address, and at the end, 5 minutes later, she received the whole form that she needs to fill up. Usually, it's a 12-hour process, the whole thing. Now, she's able to do it in 4 hours. Why 4? Because it's 3 meetings with real human. Those meetings cannot be shrink. Okay, so with that, she's able to process 3x the number of customer of client that she's normally did. And she said that phrase, oh, AI will replace me. No, we keep you in the loop. We accelerate a lot of the paperwork and all the stuff. And at the end, when she saw it in production, she said to me, oh, wow, I studied at university to be in contact with human. I'm a social worker. And now I'm able to do it. I don't, okay, wait, I have to take note. Okay, continue. Where are we at? No, she stay focused, and she able to do her work correctly.
It's like you removed all the tasks that didn't add any value.
The noise, yeah.
You remove the noise from, and I really like that. You see in the great section, no AI, 100% manual. You know, when you're taking notes and the person is explaining to you, like, sometimes, and it's she's a social worker, so perhaps it's really heavy sometimes, the situation, and the person
emotional,
it's very emotional, exactly, and you want to be 100% listening to that person, not taking notes, right? So this is a great example of how AI was able to kind of empower her, because now she's 100% dedicated to listening, be there for the person, and then afterwards the notes are being taken by themselves, right? So she has more time to help more people within the same day. So and so this is a great example of how we could take this and put it in many different other use cases that are similar, right? Whether it's healthcare, but also internal processes, it's the same. It's the same.
Yeah, it's very, very similar. And I mean, I'd like to kind of bring us also to like a demonstration of how this works a little bit behind the scenes, right? Because as we can see, I don't think it's hard to sell the value, right? Like this is perfect. Look, like your ability to talk about how a social worker was actually impacted by this, right? So if we want to go a little bit behind the scenes, we could talk a little bit about how we did this at Canadian Heritage. Canadian Heritage, I used to love the way one executive I worked with there characterized the department. He would call it the Santa Claus department. He said, it's great because what we do is we give away money. What could be better? Right? Like nobody's ever mad at us. We're constantly in the news for doing great things. This is perfect. But the fact of the matter is they're not always in the news for doing great things. Sometimes things happen. We've heard of things like the Hockey Canada scandal. We've heard of things where like they've been in the news for giving money to people who had questionable pasts, and it's because we weren't able to actually take the time to do more of the in-depth analysis of who are we giving the money to, because all of the time is being spent trying to figure out the process of bringing people through each of the services. Now, fact of the matter is, I'm gonna bring us into a demo where they said, can we use AI to do something? And it was interesting because it was clear that they wanted to kind of just explore AI for something. And we said, okay, well, why don't we use it as a discovery service for your different programs? You will start there, and it could be the entry point for everything that along a grants and contributions process, which goes from discovery through to eligibility and assessment. And they said, okay, let's do that. And then when we were doing it, one of the challenges they put to us, and they said, it has to be better than Google. Great. That's the gold standard. How do you make something better than Google? And that's that. So we took that as as our challenge, and we did what we call the four windows demo. And I'm going to bring you through the four windows right now. So I'm assuming we can see my screen of there's these four windows. Yep. So let me give you the quick rundown. I'm going to run you through this pretty quickly. So the four windows are this, and this is what we actually showed to the deputy minister and all of the ADMs. And this was done in collaboration with the program managers and the program officers, the people who were actually impacted by this. And as we talked about earlier, these were people who were kind of a little bit reticent to come to the table because they felt this was going to expose some of the internal issues, a bit of the skeletons in the closet. But these were the people that got so excited through the process that it was just mind-blowing for the deputy. And so the idea was, you go to the Canada.ca, you go to the Canada.ca landing page, and then you look for funding, and you come to this page. Now, the fact of the matter is, what people may not realize is that Canadian Heritage has 140 programs, or over 140 programs. When you come to the Government of Canada's official website, you can see right away that it only shows 41 programs. Okay. Oh, wow. So this right away, that was a bit of a uh-oh moment for the executives, but this is what happens, right? Now, we use true human-centered design to be able to go through this. We created scenarios, we created personas. One of the scenarios was, I'm a nonprofit organization. I'm looking to celebrate the anniversary of our village or of our city. It's 125th anniversary. We want money to erect a statue of somebody who was prominent in our community for a big 125th celebration. So that's what I'm looking for, right? Then that's a very true type of a situation. Well, the fact of the matter is, I don't know where to find that in these four. So if I look at the filter of the items, it's like, I'm nonprofit, nothing. I want to do an anniversary, nothing. Maybe a statue, nothing. So right away, there's absolutely nothing that comes up. So it's like, great, let's go to Google and find out. Let's type in not-for-profit funding statue Canada. Well, the AI overview basically talks about what a not-for-profit funding in Canada is about. If we keep going, we've got Canada Council for the Arts. Nope. We've got arts and activities and charitable registration. Nope. We have a grants portal from Ontario. We've got Grants Watch. We've got application guideline. So right away you could see, and this again was us telling them, look how Google is treating your potential citizens, your potential clients. You can't even find Canadian Heritage, any programs on the front page of Google, right? And we know that's pretty important. So what we did is we demonstrated this. So when we talk about AI readiness, the whole concept is, I always like to say, you can't have good AI without great IA, which is information architecture. And what we did is we actually took their information, which they had a great amount of information, right? We didn't make anything up. We took their information, we curated it. So when we curated it, we didn't even take the 140. We took 104 records, right, of that they had. 104 programs, and we boiled it down into these cards. And then we created the information architecture, which is controlled vocabularies, metadata, taxonomies, like being able to connect it all. And then we created these filters. And so now if I'm an applicant, right, and this is the controlled vocabulary on the left that helps us curate. And then we go into the not-for-profits, okay, not-for-profit organization. You can see we've gone down to 90 of 104 records. And if I go into the search and I say, well, I'm going to do an anniversary, we're now down to 4 records, right? And right away, the executive said, legacy fund, that's the one. right? So they actually went right and clicked on it and said, yep, the legacy fund in the building communities through arts and heritage sub-program, that's the one you would use. It took me seconds to get there, and I couldn't have gotten there through Google. It would have never brought me there. So right away, we demonstrated that using this approach, we made them more AI ready. And here was the kicker. The side benefit was in 10 weeks, we created an information system that became the system of record for them, more than any of the other information systems that they had inside of the department. And in fact, the executive said to the deputy minister, "This is now our new system of record for our own programs. This is how we know what's going on." And we did this in 9 of the 10 weeks. And what we did in the last week was this. I told them, "Be careful. This is a head fake. Please do not ask us to put this chatbot up on the web. Don't make this live. All we're trying to show you is that because we've curated your content, we've made you more AI ready, right? So why don't we demonstrate that? We built a GPT, and you can see the Canadian Heritage Program Navigator. And we just did this prompt, not-for-profit organization. We're looking to fund and celebrate 125th anniversary of a prominent person in our community so that we can build a statue with an unveiling party in our celebrations. What funding is available? So when we click on it, the focus is focus in on the curated content first, right? Don't go out to the global LLM. And we said, and we maintain this to this day, AI is unpredictable, right? We don't know if it's what's going to come up, but let's see. And they said, yeah, you know what? These are all important ones, and they could work. And we said, okay, well, is there anything else?
So that way, Stephen, you will be able to have your own statue. Eh?
That's right. Well, that's really what I've been talking. So see now, look, see this, the BACA, Building Communities Through Arts and Heritage, the Legacy Fund. That's the one. So the fact of the matter is, we weren't trying to build a chatbot, and so we didn't optimize it to make sure that this was the first thing that came up. That could have been easy. That would have been an easy next step. What we were trying to do is we were trying to demonstrate to them that you really need to curate your content. You really need to understand your content. We were able to get people to understand their roles and responsibilities in validating the results, and that was really, really important. So if I bring us back to the demonstrate or the deck, right? Just to kind of show you what this was about versus what it wasn't about. It was really about exploration and experimentation, right? We were building a chatbot, right? So we want to be data and content driven. We want to build AI capability, not an AI tool. And we need to validate this with humans. And so, again, we didn't want to build a chatbot. We didn't want to implement technology, and we didn't want to compete with people. We wanted to showcase this, and it was important. We had all the right people in the room. We had the head of HR there, who was really wondering how did you work with people? What were their reactions? What questions did they ask? Right? And I was like, this is a beautiful conversation because nobody's asking questions about AI. Everybody's talking about what AI can do. Everybody's talking about what the humans did. But nobody was talking about the technology. Nobody said, how did you ensure that your open source technology was compatible with our stack? They didn't care. The fact of the matter is they were more interested in how it changed people's perspectives and perceptions, right? We created a mind shift, and that was so key. And that's part of what we want to do is create that mind shift, because a lot of people don't want to move as fast as they think they can. But when they do, wow, what an impact.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stephen. This is great. This is a great example of how we can leverage the data you have, just structure it in a way that it will enable AI and then enable and empower all your users and the citizens, right?
And then the data was there.
The data was there. Exactly.
We didn't make anything up. It was theirs. And that was, I think, one of the more surprising pieces is they were saying, so where did you get all of this? That's what they asked. They actually asked, where did you get all of this data? We said, it was yours. In fact, it was some of the better data that we'd ever used, and they were sitting on top of it.
And that situation is probably the situation that all departments are in right now. They do have access to data. They do have teams that are ready to use AI or are ready to be educated in order to use AI. And then there you go. You can do more with less.
Absolutely.
And one bite at a time. Don't need to boil the ocean,
Well,
right?
that's it.
Yeah.
And you can see that the process, like we even kind of uncovered that process for them, where you could what we did is we said we built you your own LLM, right? Your own large language model, and it really was just the curation. And you can see at the bottom of the slide, you're really looking at the IA, your IA assets, and you're creating this iterative training loop. But what was really important was the human connection, right? Where the humans are supported by AI, and the humans train the AI, right? So there's this constant relationship between humans and the machinery, and I think that becomes really, really important for it. So just wanted to kind of give you a sense of how that worked. You'll be able to see more in the deck itself. I mean, how we did this using an agile user experience design and data curation, how that could be actually evolved into intake and assessment, and then really some of the key takeaways, right? And I think that's really what we want to talk about, Val, as part of our key takeaways. And if I kind of start off with, I said it before, good AI requires great IA. It's not just about appointing AI tools at your existing mess, right? We're watching this happen with a lot of experiments, and people are taking the face value what the results are. You actually need to iterate that and train it with great information architecture, and that takes data and information management skills. And so that's where you need to invest. And the focus was, we didn't go in there saying we want a chatbot, right? The chatbot is a solution. It's chatbot's an answer to a question that very few people asked, right? And so what we wanted to do was just kind of like fall in love with the problem. And that's really the problem space. That's about human-centered design. Focus on the problem space, and then you'll get to a solution, because then you'll know that the solution meets the problem. So that's kind of the first couple. Val, you got some other thoughts?
Yeah, well, good AI requires great IA. I like that quote. And good data, good enough data. I would say clean data. That's kind of good practice as well. But once you have all, and then you involve the human side of it, and you're really human centric, this is where great AI comes, right? So, um, and then fall in love with the problem, not the solution. What you mean here is that, well, what I like to do is, don't do AI just to do AI, and don't focus on the tech first. Go back to what you're trying to achieve. What are your objectives as an organization? What are your pain points, your challenges? Usually this is the starting point, the key starting point. And to go there and to get those, involve your key users, involve the different teams. They will tell you, they know best about what are the pain points and the opportunities for AI. And then you will identify where to start based on your data, based on your structure of your data, and who's willing to get started with you, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
And if you look even further down, like I mean, building on some of what, I mean, you and I've had this conversation before, and look like offline, right? Where it's kind of like, you don't need to start from scratch. You have a lot of stuff, right?
Mhm.
Like, you mean, when we talk about being AI ready, it's not about, oh God, we got to do this massive pivot. No, you're building capabilities based on what you already have, right? And
It
you
could
blend
be just
human-centered
PDF.
design.
It could
What's
just
that,
be
Luke?
PDFs
Yeah.
somewhere on the OneDrive,
Yeah,
and
just
you could leverage
PDFs.
that.
Hmm.
Yep.
Hmm.
This is it, right? And you don't need to invest in this massive infrastructure. There's a lot of companies out there that are telling you, "Oh, I got the best tool for you," or you need to invest in this massive infrastructure. You
No,
don't. You could
no.
actually use just enough technology. I love the concept of just
Yep.
enough governance, just enough data, just enough technology, because then you're able to fail fast, or understand these are the things we didn't know. And I think that's really important, because we are going into a lot of the unknown, right? Some of the knowns unknowns, and some are the unknown unknowns. And by doing just enough, you get to those unknown unknowns quickly, and then you could address them. And that's part of the iterative nature. And Val, you said it before, don't boil the ocean, right?
Mm.
You've got the existing infrastructure. You can explore and experiment. You can harvest benefits. And everything doesn't have to be an experiment that's thrown away, right? Even advancing through an experiment by creating a better structure for your content, better processes, more defined roles and responsibilities. Those are wins in and of themselves. Because even before AI, we've been trying to do that. But sometimes executives would say, well, why are we spending so much money on this? And I'm not seeing the result of better data, right? It's like, I need more data. I want more dashboards. I want more insights. Well, now we're actually able to do that through, a little bit faster, through proper experimentation, not boiling the ocean, but harvesting the benefits along the way. I think this is really, really important. And to do that, in summary, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? And that's kind of a way of saying we have to make sure that we catch ourselves and the people around us when we kind of retreat back into a fixed mindset, right? We need a growth mindset. We need to be able to ask those questions and be a little bit uncomfortable saying, oh, hang on a second, are we doing this right? Or is this really how we're doing things responsibly? And how do we make sure that it's responsible and ethical AI? Those are really, really key questions. How do we maintain privacy when we're dealing with people's information? How do we anonymize? This is great, perfect sandbox to explore in. And that's why we say explore. Don't go out and do this stuff right away willy-nilly, because you're going to run into, I would say, very headline attention-seeking types of situations that you don't want if you don't build your sandboxes first. So that's kind of where we're looking. Just look, any other thoughts around that as well?
No. I see the time. We need to go to the next one, but you explained it correctly. The data in your example was there. It's probably already public, so there's no regulation or any kind of problem that we have if we want to do AI. It's probably on their internet site. So let's go with it.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Yep. Last thing I would say before we jump to the questions and regarding being uncomfortable, be comfortable, but so whenever you implement AI, you will be uncomfortable at some point because it's you don't know what's happening. You're not familiar with it yet. But what helps with being familiar is, again, going to your proof of value that you're trying to put in place, and it needs to be measurable. As long as you can measure it and see the difference between before and after, just like your example, Duke, there was a huge impact, and we could easily see it. Number of cases per week, the amount of hours it takes per case. So by focusing on the measurables, the KPIs that are tied to your proof of value, this is where you become comfortable, slowly but surely. And then one proof of value after the other, this is how you can scale it up, and this is how you drive adoption too. Okay, let's go with the questions. Are you guys ready?
Even for my case, okay, there's even non-measurable KPIs that, like I said before, the way that she works now, by not taking notes, being focused, you have to try to figure out if there's something in your project that kind of related to that one too.
Yeah. Well, Luke, you know what? There is a question about your use case. So the question is, what were the primary obstacles in the social worker case you referred to? So the obstacle, that's interesting.
Yeah. The first thing was, what was the magic behind that? Is can I do it regarding the law? What kind of information that the AI can process and give it back to the social worker? We leverage cloud, we secure everything, and sometimes it's so simple. When she began to using the system, she said, "Okay, I'm blah blah blah. You, the customer, are present yourself," and she started recording. But I said, start the recording after that part. That way, we will be able to not record and retain all the personal information. After that, it's just, hey, Val, how are you? Look, how are you? Blah, 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 blah. There's not stuff in there that we should be afraid of keeping in the cloud. But one thing, sure, we encrypt everything. And at every step, we remove everything. So the data was there just to be processed and push away. And of course, it's kind of the basic stuff that I talk to my customer. AI should not be trained with your data. So when you do the architecture, always choose the system that they will not trade with your data.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good, Rick. Thank you. Okay, next question. I don't know which one will take this one. It's either Luke or Stephen. Many departments talk about becoming AI ready, but struggle to secure funding. Maybe that's for you, Stephen. How can we
Ah,
justify readiness investments to decision makers who want immediate results? That
well,
is a good
yeah,
question.
it's a very good question because it's very
Mm,
practical. It's very pragmatic,
yeah.
right? Like,
Or
at the end
fundings.
of the
Yeah.
day, it's kind of like, hey, want to do this? Where's the money? Right. And so, and I'm talking with a lot of CIOs, a lot of chief digital officers, a lot of chief data officers who are saying, I'd love to, but, and it's interesting because there's this paradox because the deputy ministers are saying, look, we have to find operational efficiencies using AI. Okay, great. So where's the money to actually do the work? Right? It's tied up in other massive projects or bigger priorities. So the key is to try and piggyback, right? And in certain cases, because you could actually start to do it within existing priorities, existing projects that are in flight. And I think this is important. So what you have to do is you have to back to human-centered design, pick the problem space. You're not trying to boil the ocean, you're not trying to solve the whole problem, but you could actually focus on a specific problem where you could say, okay, this has a hypothesis, it has a beginning and an end, it's easy to define, it has a data space, it has a process space, and it has a people and roles space. And when you do that and you could actually prove this out, you want to be able to do something that's back to what we talked about, proof of value, demonstrate the
Start
value,
small. Start small.
measure the value, right? And again, and then what you're able to say is, okay, give us this much time, right? It could be 3 months, it could be 4 months, but somewhere in that 100-day space. Give us that amount of time to prove this out. And if we prove it out, it proves that this is possible. It proves that this is valuable, and it's going to require us to rethink how we fund this, right? And that's a lot of the messaging, a lot of the storytelling that needs to happen because most people aren't sitting on a pile of money that's doing nothing, right? And saying, well, we need to build an AI program that's going to be tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. It really is
No.
about you got to prove this out, right? And so do it using existing funding envelopes and existing projects, or do this using there's a variety of DM reserves. There's money about to lapse. Especially this year, there's been very little spending with comprehensive expenditure review. Some departments are actually cash rich. So if you could actually do things within existing contracts, you can do an experiment right before the end of the year. So there's it does require a little bit of ambition and a little bit of ability to move forward quickly. And I know that's very difficult to say within the government of Canada context. But let me tell you, things are shifting. And when we talk about the velocity that's required to deliver what's under this government's agenda, now's the time to really move things forward and work with your procurement people because they're core to this and they're very important to making this happen. So make sure that they're part of the solution as well, and not sitting there going, okay, I'm overwhelmed, so I'm going to stop this from happening. So these are
Mm.
all the machinery elements that we need to think about.
Yeah, and I know that the Levio team usually works a lot to we help our clients find those fundings as well
Yep.
and put in place the strategies. It's really part of our mandate usually, right? So we're
Yes.
here to help with the fundings. All right, thanks. Next question. What approaches can you give us to adopt AI tools when we are facing resistance to learning, possibly out of fear or failure? And yeah, so this goes back to what you were referring to, Luke, right? People are afraid of
Yeah.
AI. And you know what? Humans are afraid of changes altogether,
Period.
usually. Exactly. So it's normal. So the first thing you want to do is ensure that everybody understands AI and everybody's on the same page. So how you can do that is by educating them, yes, on AI, but also really pushing that message from the top that people are not here to be replaced by AI. They are here to be empowered by AI. This is very important. So remember what I explained with the bottom-up approach versus the top-down approach. The best is to have both because the bottom-up approach will allow them to be involved in the decision making and therefore be less afraid of what could happen because they will be part of the decisions, right? And the top bottom piece is important as well because you want to send that message of we are here to work with you. AI is here to help you to start doing value added tasks instead of mundane, repetitive, no added value tasks that perhaps you are doing right now. And so let's remove that and let's improve the employee experience as well as the citizen experience. So when you push that message a lot, it helps. It really helps, and that would be the foundations of scaling adoption at the same time as well. And you know what? I also saw there was one particular individual in a team that was really retractory, really didn't want to do anything. And you know what? We chose that particular person to be the champion,
Yep.
to work with us, to talk about potential AI use cases, talk about the pain points, how AI could help. And that person was the worst of, and we were able to bring it back. And then all the others around in the team were like, oh, you know what? If they were able to convince Robert, I can do it too. His name was not Robert for real. I just invented that name. But if Robert is using AI now, that means I can too. And that could be a way, one of the many ways that you could improve adoption and ensure adoption. We have many different ways, and we have a huge methodology that we have developed at Levio. And from one organization to another, the approach will be different because you need to, it starts from your work culture as well. It starts from how the team works. So it really needs to be tailored to the way you work and to your own reality. And so usually we like to tailor the approach for our clients specifically to ensure adoption. Yeah. Okay, we have perhaps time for one last question, and we really need to. It's the last one afterwards. We have more than just four, but we'll answer the other ones. Last one. Given privacy laws and data sharing restrictions between federal programs, how realistic is a unified citizen view? That goes
Yeah, I
back
mean,
to what you were saying at the beginning, right, Stephen?
yeah, I mean, well, back to reality, and one of the things I mentioned before was legislation and policy can change if there's an imperative to do so, right? Remember, acts and legislation were created as a reflection of the time that they were created in. And the times have changed, right? And so what we need to be able to do is we need to be able to actually look for the low-hanging fruit where it doesn't contravene any policy or legislation, and we look for the quick wins, because as we demonstrate the sharing and the quick wins and the protection of privacy through things like identity management, digital credentials, and we apply that where we can actually start to bring information together, even if it's done through a variety of different methods or techniques where you're not actually contravening the legislation. By demonstrating you can do that, you can then turn around and then demonstrate that, well, we need to make changes if we want to go further, because we've proven convenience, we've proven operational savings, we've proven we can now do more with less, with higher client satisfaction, citizen satisfaction, and more importantly, we can actually start removing red tape a lot more easily with with government citizens and businesses across Canada, and supporting our economic agenda, our environmental agenda, and the current agenda that is a reflection of the current geopolitical environment. So when times are calling for it, some extreme measures can be made. And I think, as we've all seen, there are some extreme measures that are going on right now to ensure that Canada becomes as independent as it can be, that it diversifies its trade relationships, and that it redefines itself in this current geopolitical environment. And so I think, looking at some of the barriers that we've got, they pale in comparison to the benefits that can be had if we start to remove these barriers. So I think this is the time where we do this. I think during peacetime, it was a little bit tougher. It's not as peaceful as it once was. And so I think we can be, we can actually leverage that a little bit to citizens and businesses' advantage.
Very good. It's the only time we had left. I cannot answer any more questions. So what we will do, all the participants will receive this deck that we shared today. And we will share the recording as well, I believe, afterwards. So thank you so much, everybody, for participating. Anyone who put a question we didn't have the time to answer, we will answer by email shortly. We are very happy to have spent this almost hour with you guys, and hopefully we can talk again. Thank you, everyone. Have a
Thanks,
nice
Val.
Thanks for
day.
tuning in, everyone.
Thanks, Ethan. Hi, everyone.
Bye
Bye.
bye.